Kemudian dari pupuk standar kita inovasikan pada nutrisi tanaman, solusi agri dan servis. Nah, nanti di bawah nanti saya akan sampaikan seperti apa gitu. Jadi kita sesuaikan pupuknya sama kondisi tanahnya, karena kondisi tanah itu berbeda-beda. Kemudian cost dan model, jadi kita ingin best in class di operation dan supply chain. Karena siapa yang menguasai supply chain itu pasti akan menguasai pasar. Gitu. Jadi mau nggak mau, pupuk Indonesia ini harus berubah jadi perusahaan teknologi, harus berubah jadi perusahaan supply chain. Gitu. Tidak hanya jualan pupuk, nah, tidak hanya memproduksi pupuk. Kalau dulu tuh pikirannya cuma produksi pupuk. Gitu. Pasti laku karena subsidi. Nah itu nggak laku lagi di pemikiran anak-anak muda pupuk Indonesia itu sudah mulai dirubah gitu, cara pandang itu. Kemudian strategi holding jadi aktivis dan fungsional holding. Jadi peran-peran utama di anak perusahaan itu ditarik ke holding, terutama pengadaan, IT, pemasaran itu ditarik ke holding semua. Jadi di unper itu mostly adalah production. Nah, sekarang mari kita bicara tentang transformasi digital. Ini yang menarik. Ini terngiang-ngiang di telinga saya terus. Jadi yang namanya transformasi digital itu jika dikerjakan dengan benar, itu bisa mengubah ulat jadi kupu-kupu. Bukan kalau salah itu hanya bisa mengubah ulat jadi ulat yang lebih cepat gitu aja. Nah itu yang biasa kesalahan-kesalahan ini yang sering teman-teman IT itu keblasuk ya bahasanya apa ya, terperosok itu dengan pendekatan teknologi itu akan banyak menciptakan ulat yang lebih cepat, tapi tidak menciptakan ulat yang bisa mengubah dia menjadi kupu-kupu. Gitu. Nah, jadi sebenarnya value yang dibutuhkan oleh perusahaan untuk transformasi digital ini apa sih sebetulnya? Nah, ini dari industri 4.0 ya, Bapak Ibu. Jadi yang pertama adalah increase productivity. Nah, increase productivity ini artinya apapun ukurannya, salah satunya adalah bagi satu orang kepala employee itu bisa menghasilkan laba berapa besar. Nah, ini salah satu ukurannya. Kemudian flexibility, nggak ada ceritanya lagi sekarang ini konsep-konsep birokrat, nggak fleksibel tuh bisnisnya. Kalau bisnis nggak bisa just in time itu pasti akan ditinggal. Yang kemudian yang kedua adalah speed, harus cepat. Kalau butuh sekarang, kalau bisa kemarin sudah ada. Gitu. Nah, itu yang kita harus sampaikan. Jadi kebutuhan masa depan itu harus predik sekarang. Jangan sampai salah tempat, jangan sampai salah harga. Nah, gitu ya. Yang terakhir adalah quality. Kalau quality is common. Jadi quality ini harus kita lakukan secara terus-menerus. Nah, saya punya 2 case. Satu case saya pengalaman saya di Pupuk Kaltim, yang kedua pengalaman saya di Pupuk Indonesia. Nah, saya sebut aja Pupuk Kaltim ini BUMN pertama yang menjadi lighthouse INDI 4.0 di Indonesia. Gitu ya. Dan mungkin BUMN dan swasta pertama asli Indonesia yang menjadi lighthouse nasional gitu ya. Nah, ini yang apa yang kita lakukan di sana. Nah, ini. Jadi semakin tinggi value IT, maka perusahaan akan semakin menghargai IT itu dan menempatkan IT itu sebagai apa? Ini pengaruhnya. Jadi kalau IT cuma diposisikan sebagai support, ya pancowingking gitu ya. Naik lagi jadi enabler. Oh, sudah real time semuanya gitu ya. Kemudian semuanya sudah di sistem informasikan lah katakanlah gitu. Nah, naik lagi itu jadi driver. IT mulai mimpin Ibu, Bapak Ibu. IT mulai mimpin berikan solusi-solusi. Itu mulai di sini. Driver. Nah, lebih lagi jadi transformer. IT itu sudah bisa dipakai untuk menghasilkan duit di perusahaan-perusahaan. Itu apa? Simptom-simptomnya apa? Jadi peran CEO dan CEO menonjol. Jadi ada direktur yang benar-benar ngelit IT. Itu pasti satu. Yang kedua, IT itu pasti ada proyek-proyek yang buat naikkan EBITDA. Jadi seperti saya ini namanya senior project manager. Jadi nggak ada lagi struktur-struktur kaku yang SVP. SVP itu ngurusi operasional. Tapi kalau project manager, tugas saya adalah buat EBITDA baru. Buat EBITDA baru. EBITDA itu nambah revenue atau ngurangi cost. Gitu ya. Kemudian pemanfaatan AI untuk pengambilan keputusan top management ini bisa forecast atau peramalan-peramalan ke depan. Karena penting, kalau kita jual pupuk ini, pabrik pupuk itu kapasitasnya terbatas. Tapi kalau kita bisa jual di waktu tertentu, itu kita akan mendapatkan gain lebih tinggi gitu. Contohnya harga pupuk itu rata-rata biasanya 250 urea ya per ton, $250 sampai 300. Hari ini $800 per ton. Nah, pas $800 per ton, barangnya sudah habis tuh. Sudah nyiapin untuk subsidi dan nggak ada lagi barang non subsidi. Nah, yang seperti itu kita harus pakai price prediction ke depan gitu ya. Nah, di sini juga cirinya itu kita punya IT maturity. Nah, ini COVID ya. COVID itu bisa dibilang theoretical gitu. Tapi ternyata ini ampuh, Bapak Ibu. COVID ini ampuh. Karena apa? Begitu kita masuk COVID, semuanya kayak medical check up gitu. Dengan cara inilah orang IT bisa ngomong ke manajemen. Gitu. Pak, kita masih di posisi ini. Kalau kita mau world class, nggak bisa. Kita harus naikin. Yang diperbaiki di di bagian ini kurang gitu. Kita harus naik gitu. Nah, 2021 pupuk Kaltim sudah 4 di COVID versi 4 ya, ini belum versi 5 gitu. Karena di SKBMN-nya masih menyebut gitu. Nah, saya lanjut. Nah, kemudian kami mengubah sedikit jadi alignment. Ini salah nih, bukan alignment infrastruktur. Ini bisnis IT alignment gitu. Jadi dari bisnis strategi itu diturunkan jadi bisnis direktif ke IT steering committee. Jadi kalau perusahaan nggak punya IT steering committee, itu saya yakin IT-nya positioningnya rendah. Di sini langsung dipimpin oleh BOD, salah satu BOD. Gitu. Dari situ turunlah IT direktif. Gitu. IT direktif menelurkan IT master plan, diturunkan jadi roadmap. Roadmap ini yang mengerjakan bukan unit IT, yang mengerjakan adalah tim-tim ad hoc bersama user selama development. Jadi kayak saya SPM, di Pupuk Indonesia itu ada 14 lebih SPM. Itu tim-tim ad hoc yang dibentuk. Jadi development, dan kita sekali lagi ngomong, kalau kita ngomong Six Sigma, kita ngomong TQM, kita ngomong Pareto. Yang value-nya paling gede apa, itu kita kerjain duluan. Nah, disinilah dari tim ad hoc ini, kalau sudah selesai, masukkan ke operation di unit IT. Di samping itu, unit bisnis bisa langsung memberikan IT inisiatif ke IT steering committee. Jadi ada perubahan IT master plan. Di Pupuk Kaltim setiap 3 bulan IT master plan-nya dan IT roadmap-nya dirubah. Revisi 1, revisi 2, sampai revisi 15 tuh dalam 5 tahun. Gitu. Nah, dasarnya itu semua adalah corporate culture. Nah, culture-nya kalau yang di Pupuk Kaltim itu paguyuban Bapak Ibu, semuanya kenal. Jadi semua pekerjaan itu selesai sebelum rapat. Semua keputusan selesai sebelum rapat. Rapat, formalitas, surat. Gitu. Itu budayanya. Itu mempermudah implementasi IT di Pupuk Kaltim. Gitu. Kemudian, di samping kanannya itu ada maturity. Checklist-nya itu ada di situ. Checklist-nya ada di situ. Bisnis IT alignment-nya itu. Jadi kalau saya katakan IT maturity-nya 4, artinya semua ini sudah berjalan pasti. Nah, yang membedakan kita dengan yang lain tim ad hoc ini. Jarang yang mau buat tim ad hoc. Karena semua orang itu pasti punya bagian pekerjaan lain di luar pekerjaannya sendiri. Gitu. Oke, lanjut. Nah, ini kita masuk ke industri 4.0 sedikit. Di industri 4.0 itu ada yang namanya integrasi vertikal dan integrasi horizontal. Integrasi vertikal ini yang dikerjakan. Jadi mulai dari sensor field sampai dengan ERP di atas. Otomasi banyak di sini. Dari plan performance, operation dashboard, asset health monitoring, maintenance performance dan sebagainya. Nah, ini dikerjakan. Dan jangan heran Bapak Ibu, ini dikerjakan in-house. Jadi kalau Bapak Ibu ada vendor nawarin ke Pupuk Kaltim diketawain. Karena kami membangun tim ad hoc itu dari mulai entry level programmer sampai dengan senior business analyst itu sudah advance semua. Semuanya langsung cemplungin ke project, cemplungin project gitu. Jadi kalau ada yang nawarin nawarin kalau bisa ngalahin aplikasinya Pupuk Kaltim silahkan nawarin. Tapi kalau semuanya sudah ada di Pupuk Kaltim, ya mohon maaf, kami nggak bisa nerima gitu. Jadi kami banyak 80%, 90% kami kerjakan in-house. Kami meyakini bahwa laba-laba itu dibangun dari satu laba-laba. Nggak mungkin satu laba-laba itu satu sarang laba-laba dibangun oleh banyak laba-laba gitu ya. Nah, karena itu harus ada satu komen, itu apa? Master plan sama roadmap. Dan pengembangannya pun sudah ada standar-standar yang kita kembangkan gitu. Jadi karena itu bisa cepat. Dalam setahun kita bisa produce 20 sampai 25 aplikasi baru. Gitu. Nah, ini. Jadi horizontal integration-nya ini dari supplier sampai dengan customer, development, kemudian logistik, production, sales marketing, itu semuanya kita kerjain di sini. Nah, ini tapi apakah kami langsung mature? Enggak. Kami kerjain mulai 2013, 2014 itu naik dikit-dikit. Nah, dari sini kami menyadari saya kurangnya di sini, kurangnya di cyber security, kurangnya di infrastructure, kurangnya di SDM misalkan itu. Kita kurangin, kita kerjakan sedikit-sedikit sampai dengan sekarang sekarang mungkin sudah 4,32 mungkin. Ini 2019. Gitu ya. Nah, ini aplikasi yang sudah kami kerjakan selama ini. Mungkin sekitar 85 aplikasi di Pupuk Kaltim. Jadi kalau mau apa aja dah, di sana kebun binatang maksudnya. Jadi mau aplikasi apapun itu insya Allah semuanya sudah ada di sana. Nah, ini adalah Lighthouse Industry 4.0 tahun 2020. Nah, tadi saya sampaikan bahwa stakeholder itu maunya value. Value-nya apa? Saya nggak sampaikan di sini, nggak saya tulis maksudnya. Satu kepala Pupuk Kaltim itu sebelum pandemi itu bisa menghasilkan laba sekitar 1M. Satu kepala. Satu karyawan Pupuk Kaltim bisa menghasilkan laba 1M. Setelah pandemi, terakhir kemarin, ternyata harganya sangat tinggi sekali. Sekarang ini satu orang bisa menghasilkan sekitar 2,5M. Itu karena durian runtuh, karena berkah ini. Jadi pabrik-pabrik di dunia yang lain mungkin recover-nya nggak secepat Indonesia ya. Jadi harganya melambung tinggi urea. Nah, begitu. Ini value. Nah, pada waktu 2016, kenapa IT ini bisa dijadikan leader gitu ya? BOD waktu itu mengatakan karena ada benchmark di tempat lain, kita nggak merekrut karyawan baru dan akan menurunkan karyawan dari 2.300 jadi 2.500 gitu. Nah, semuanya protes gitu ya, semuanya protes. Semuanya nggak usah protes kalau ada pekerjaan administratif semuanya minta IT buatin sistem. Itu yang kita lakukan sejak 2016. Dan sekarang karyawannya 1.400 dengan kondisi yang sama. Tapi yang jelas gajinya sama bonusnya naik jadinya. Nah, itu menjadikan karyawan, oh ini tuh hasilnya gitu ya. Jadi nggak nambah orang, tapi nambah peran orang. Jadi tim ad hoc itu tadi. Jadi kita memaksimalkan semua yang ada di sana. Dan alhamdulillah 70% itu milenial gitu. Kita nurunin karyawan dari 2.500 menjadi 1.400 tanpa PHK ya, tanpa PHK. Dan productivity per orang dari satu orang itu sekitar 300-400 juta jadi 1M sampai 1,5M. Tahun ini mungkin 2,5M karena dapat durian runtuh itu per orang. Jadi kalikan aja jumlah karyawan. Nah, sekarang saya mau masuk ke Pupuk Indonesia. Nah, di Pupuk Indonesia ini lebih rumit lagi, lebih kompleks lagi. Budayanya beda gitu. Budaya tiap-tiap Unper itu beda. Nah, itu kita punya namanya strategic house. Jadi ada 15 pilar strategi dan 6 fondasi. Salah satu fondasinya adalah digital and advanced analytic capability. Nah, di sini salah satu aksinya adalah membentuk tim digital. Salah satunya tim saya di transformasi digital sama tim SPM data science gitu. Di sini IT dijadikan fondasi gitu. Kita sudah sadar gitu bahwa digitalisasi ini menjadi fondasi. Kalau fondasinya nggak kuat, atasnya akan runtuh. Tapi kalau fondasinya kuat, atasnya akan kuat. Nah, jadi apa yang kita lakukan? Transformasi organisasi, sentralisasi pemasaran, pengadaan, SDM, riset, dan TI ditarik. Agro Solution, Retail Management kita tambahnya. Jadi kita tidak lagi produksi-produksi, tapi kita masuk ke services di Agro Solution. Kemudian kita masuk ke pasar retail. Kalau dulu B2B aja, sekarang kita masuk ke pasar retail. Di transformasi digital kita sudah ngembangin distribution DPCS gitu, distribution planning and control system, data analytic, retail management, product tracking, supply chain command center dan sebagainya. Sama transformasi budaya. Budaya ini agak lebih susah karena ini masih proses akulturasi ya antar anper gitu. Nah, ini contohnya saya di outbound digitalisasi transformasi. Jadi mulai lini 1 pabrik sampai dengan petani itu semuanya harus tercapture. Jadi ada di situ SAP, APG itu aplikasi gudang. Kemudian ada antrian truk, masuk antrian truk, ada monitoring truk, ada monitoring kapal, diterima di lini 2, ada antrian truk lagi, monitoring truk, terima lini 3 gitu ya. Kemudian distributor di pengecer, di situ ada POS yang kita siapkan untuk pengecer. Ada product tracking di situ dan semuanya itu dipantau dalam distribution planning and control system. Data yang sudah didapat kita ambil untuk analitik. Nah, ini contohnya di sini kami DPCS itu ada monitoringnya, ada planningnya. Planningnya itu forecasting. Jadi kita bisa merencanakan secara otomatis dari mana ke mana, berapa banyak, kapan. Nah, itu di-generate oleh sistem. Nah, ini kita sudah dapat achievement banyak di sini. Salah satu yang paling bergengsi adalah Gartner Supply Chain Innovation Award. Kita bisa dapat first runner up, hanya kalah dari Schneider waktu itu. Dan salah satu pertanyaannya nggak bisa dijawab adalah waktu itu ya, pupuk Indonesia atau pupuk Kaltim ini kenapa nggak punya cabang di luar negeri? Nah, itu kita belum bisa jawab, gitu ya, waktu itu. Nah, ini salah satunya kita ambil dari Petro. Itu namanya Petropod. Ini antrian kapal sama pengisian monitoring pengisian kapal di port. Nah, satu lagi, ini program namanya Makmur. Nah, kita main sekarang komunitas, Pak. Jadi tidak hanya jual pupuk, tapi kita ajak semua komunitas yang ada di pangan itu mencoba satu komunitas. Jadi mulai off-takernya ada, asuransinya ada, Pemda, teknologi pertanian, ada agro input, penyediaan pupuk, ada pinjaman gitu ya. Jadi petani itu tahunya tanam, panen, tanam, panen, tanam, panen gitu ya. Nah, kita sudah coba di 25.000 hektar dan rata-rata untuk padi itu kita bisa tingkatin dari 5 ton jadi 7 sekian ton. Jagung juga yang sampai 9 ton, 10 ton ada. Karena kita benar-benar dampingi mulai dari dari soil test, kemudian perkembangannya sampai dengan off-taker langsung diambil gitu. Nah, ini sudah terjadi secara offline. Nah, ini ada satu aplikasi online yang nanti kita speed up dari 25.000 itu di tahun 2022 kita akan lipatkan jadi 1 juta hektar. Nah, tentunya di sini yang masuk digitalisasi, nggak bisa lagi kita offline gitu. Nah, di sini ini belum saya sebut namanya karena masih nanti kalau saya sebut namanya akan ada yang niru langsung diambil hak ciptanya gitu ya. Ini kita nanti kalau sudah diumumin, nah nanti lihat aja yang kalau programnya sudah diumumin Pak Menteri namanya Makmur. Mari majukan usaha rakyat. Nah itu karena Pak Erik ngomongnya gitu. Jadi yang ngasih nama Pak Erik ini. Jadi komunitas ini yang kita bangun sekarang dan 2022 kita akan kita akan besarkan jadi sekitar 1 juta ton. 1 juta hektar. Nah, contoh lain ya yang kita lakukan digitalisasi di sisi ujung, di sisi kios gitu ya. Pertama kita membangun point of sales, ini bisa dipakai oleh Kementerian Pertanian. Aplikasi ini mampu telusur gitu ya sampai ujung, kemudian dapat aplikasi ini bisa dipakai di tempat offline gitu, nggak ada internet pun kita bisa melakukan transaksi gitu ya. Kemudian ada kemudahan administrasi dan memudahkan kontrol stok di sini. Nah, ini beberapa beberapa penghargaan yang sudah kita dapat. Nah, terakhir sebelum saya tutup, mungkin banyak tanya jawab aja. Kalau katanya Jack Ma itu ketika kamu miskin, belum sukses, semua kata-kata bijakmu terdengar seperti kentut gitu ya. Tapi ketika kamu sudah sukses, kentutmu terdengar sangat bijak dan menginspirasi. Dan semoga apa yang saya sampaikan tadi tidak seperti kentut gitu ya. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya serahkan kembali ke moderator.
Terima kasih Pak Novan. Saya kira ini excellent sekali yang sudah dilakukan oleh Pak Novan dan tim, pengalamannya, dan juga di Pupuk Kaltim dan Pupuk Indonesia ya. Kita doakan semoga makin berkibar lah transformasi digital yang ada di Pupuk Kaltim dan Pupuk Indonesia khususnya. Baik, kita sekarang masuk ke sesi kedua. Akan disampaikan oleh Pak Profesor Abdurrahman Ahlan tentang topik yang akan beliau sampaikan adalah tentang IT investment. Beliau ini mungkin saya mohon izin Profesor Abdurrahman Ahlan untuk membacakan CV singkat. Beliau adalah profesor di Kuliah of Information and Communication Technology, International Islamic University Malaysia. Beliau Bachelor of Business Administration dari International Islamic University Malaysia, kemudian Master dari University of Warwick, dan juga Doctor of Philosophy in Management Information System dari Cardiff University. Terima kasih sekali Profesor Abdurrahman Ahlan sudah menyempatkan waktu untuk diskusi dengan kami. Semoga mahasiswa-mahasiswa kami khususnya bisa belajar banyak dari Profesor Abdurrahman. Beliau fokus risetnya di Management of IT Innovation and Adoption, IT Project Management, IT Governance, IT Risk and Security Management, dan juga Graduate Skill Set. Baik, untuk menyingkat waktu, saya persilakan Profesor Abdurrahman Ahlan untuk menyampaikan materinya. It's okay in English, Profesor Abdurrahman?
If you don't mind, yeah.
Yes. Okay, silakan.
Thank you very much, Pak Basuki. It was interesting to hear, presentation from Pak Ari. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Telkom University for inviting me and giving me the chance to share something on the topic of IT investment. And I'm also glad that I was able to make contact again with Dr. Muharman, who is our alumni. He used to be our student before, and now he has in service with Telkom University. So we are very proud of Dr. Muharman as one of our graduates. So inshallah, I will discuss the topic or the title of IT investment, of nothing to everything. Okay, so in trying to find a way of how we strike a balance, of trying to find what would be the best strategy for an organization to make IT investment. Let me just start by sharing my slides. Can you see my slide?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So this is the title given to me to discuss and share with the audience. So the title is IT investment of nothing and everything, and trying to find the right strategy. So I would like to start my point of discussion from the context of organization or business entities, because organizations are the ones that make a decision on IT investment in their respective sectors, whether they are in government sectors, whether in financial sectors, manufacturing, health sector, oil and gas, education. I think the case that was presented by Pak Ari earlier was in agricultural sector. So we can already see how the use of digital technology or IT can help in the organization transform itself. And for each of the respective sector, they have their own unique supply chain. And I think every organization operates within the realm of supply chain. So they have suppliers, they have customers and clients. So in order to create the service or the product that you're going to sell to, they have to work with their suppliers as well as their clients or customers. So we need to understand, the various relationship within which each of these organizations operates. So some of them can be operating between government to business, between business to business, between business to customers, and so on. I think most of you are familiar with these different types of relationships. And on the issue of IT investment, I think there are a lot of studies being done, and since the 1990s, the issue of IT project failures has been highlighted many times. And always in the highlight of those studies and reports, the rate of failures and challenge projects means projects that are implemented with a lot of problems, were consistently higher than the successful projects. And this raised the question of effectiveness of investment strategies in IT projects. Okay, because there are so many reasons of why there are failures in terms of the investment. Many of them are not achieving the objective. And sometimes we call the failed projects as white elephants. Okay, so we have invested, we have installed and implement the systems, but it does not bring forward the objective and the outcomes that was the basis for why we invest into these technologies. Okay, so before I go further, I would like to just focus on the word strategy. So the strategy is the method of charting a path for major decisions. So when we make a major decision, we need a strategy. So because when making big decision, we don't want to just gamble, or we don't just want to take chance. So because wrong strategy can easily end up tricking investment, especially IT investment, and normally IT investment involves huge sum or huge amount of money. So we don't want to the investment to end up like a spending spree and procurement or the purchasing of the technology which is not proven. So because sometimes the mistake, because we saw other people invest in this technology, so we want to also invest in this new technology. We want to experiment whether this technology will be good for us. But sometimes expensive technology, you cannot really experiment. So you have to look at the track record. You have to see how the technology is correctly used in order to bring the benefits for your organization or for your business entity. So experimentation, trial and errors, just following hypes, okay, because other people are promoting it, that does not create a strong reason why we should just invest in those technology. And also we don't want to be locked or tied into the technology race, because other people are investing and they have those technology. We also must have that technology. Okay, so we must make the careful decision. Okay. So there's a quote I put there: choosing to do nothing in turbulent times can turn out to be the wisest course of an investor can follow. So if you're an investor, maybe if the times is very dynamic and you're not sure what is going to happen next, the best way is probably don't put your money into those investments, because you need to carefully examine the situation at hand. Because non-action may be the way to stay on the strategic path we have chosen, whereas action that deviates from your plan may impede you from reaching your long-term goals. Okay, so this is just a popular quote, and I think so. In terms of investment, not every time that we must invest. There are times when doing nothing is the right investment. Okay. So in trying to make sure that our investment is being done correctly, we need to have a technology strategy. So, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the word strategy. Strategy is actually coming from Greek word. It means general or commander, people in the leadership position. And today's strategy is the responsibility of the COs. Sometimes CTOs or chief technology officers, sometimes chief knowledge officers, sometimes CSO, chief security officers, so who are sitting at the C positions, who is the general of the corporate world. Okay, and basically a technology strategy is any plan that uses technology as its central component in accomplishing a business goal. Okay. So a business strategy should be your first stop in formulating your strategy objective, and in order for technology strategy to play on the same playing field as other business strategy within the organization, they must be presented in similar terms, with these common criteria being addressed and considered. Okay, because normally when we talk about technology strategy, you know, the people in the organization that talk about technology strategy use technical terms, and because these technical terms or technical jargon that are being used by these technical people may not be fully understood by the business people. So justifying, you know, the strategy may be difficult. What this try to say is that, you know, if we want to put forth a business or information technology industry or IT investment strategy, we must use the business terms. We must use the language that, you know, the business people can understand, because Pak Ari earlier mentioned about stakeholders. Okay, so a lot of the stakeholders are coming from the business side. So we want to make them understand why we need to invest in certain technologies. So we have to present this technology using business terms so that they can see what are the business value that they can bring forth. Because otherwise, if they cannot see the tangible values from the investment, they're not going to support the investment, or they're not going to give, you know, or they're not going to approve the investment. So I'd like to, you know, discuss the issue of information technology or IT investment from the organization context. So organization or business entity is basically a living entity. It grows and goes through a learning curve. So when you talk about investment, you must also make sure that you need to understand that where at that point of time the organization maturity level is. So I'm glad that Pak Ari also mentioned about maturity level. So it is you know, quite aligned with one of the points that I would like to put forth, you know, in discussing this issue. For example, if you have an infant, a baby, you will not invest you know, a smartphone for the baby, because it's too early for the baby, so it's not going to bring benefit. So in technology for organization also, we must make sure that the investment should be suitable for the level of maturity of that organization. So it is important also for us to examine the maturity level of our organization. All right. Information technology investment are more likely to improve firm performance, okay, if they are accompanied by complementary investment in new business process, organization structure, and organization learning that could unleash the potential of the new technology. So what this is saying is, when we want to invest in technology, it's not just about buying the technology, it's not just about procuring the technology, because there are a lot of things that comes together that complements the investment. So we must also look at our business process, we must also look at our organization structure, and we must also look at the organization learning. Because what comes with new technology would be change. So new technology normally will introduce change to our organization or to our business entity. So if the technology is implemented but there's no change that come with it, then the benefit that we expect from that investment may not come, you know, cannot be seen. All right. So it is not enough to just focus on technology when we talk about IT investment. We need to also look at the related issues. So here I point out two things. Number one is process issue, and the other side is the people issue. Okay, because in organization, it is not just, you know, the building. Okay, because normally organizations have building, but today, you know, we also have virtual organizations that do not have building. But The organization exists because there are processes in that organization. There are people that runs the organization, and people are the ones that give life to this organization. And to understand what are processes, processes in organization are the activities that the organization undertakes. So there is production, there is engineering, finance, marketing, manufacturing. So this depends on what are the core business of the organization. And within the organization, there is legal issues, there are administrative issues, there are research activities, sales, public relation, IT, so on and so forth. And in terms of people, there are people residing at different hierarchy within that organization, because some people are involved in operation, some people are involved in middle management, and the rest, a few of them will be sitting at the, chief or the leadership of the organization. So we have to understand this, because IT, new technology that we invest in normally will affect processes, will affect people. Okay, because as we push our organization on the learning curve to become more and more mature, we have to also make changes in terms of the way we do things. So, even if we reflect on our life experience, when we are young, when we're a baby, when we are, a school kid, okay, and when we are a college student, a university student, and later when we go into the working world, our behaviors and our activities are all different, okay. So to understand the organization, it is very important to understand, the segmentation of in which our organization operates. So I've mentioned earlier about, the different sectors, okay? Because by understanding which industry we belong to, then we can understand what are the core activities, what are the core business that we must focus on, because these are the things, that we must improve in terms of performance for our organization, because it is quite easy to make mistake by investing into something that really does not impact directly on the core business, but it affects on other things. Okay, so it will not improve the overall performance of the organization or the business entity remarkably if this happens. Okay, so in trying to find a good strategy for investment, we should not forget that our organization goes through a learning curve, so we have to help our organization to learn, because otherwise, as I pointed out in the first slide, organization makes a lot of mistakes, and sometimes they continue to repeat the mistakes. Okay, so in investment also, there are a lot of project failures, and those failures sometimes are being repeated because organizations are not learning from their mistakes. So it's very important for organization to improve the performance, learn from mistake, and try to avoid making the same mistake again. Okay. So organization grows from infancy to adulthood. It moves upward the learning curve. And at some point, because we say that organization actually learn because it is a living entity. So organization also acquire knowledge and also need to leverage on the knowledge that they acquired. Okay, and if you look at the learning curve in organization, especially from the perspective of IT, because IT normally deal with data, information, so on and so forth. So the lowest at the maturity level will be dealing with data issues. Okay, so if let's say our organization is struggling to deal with data, what is the accurate data, then the organization actually is at a lower level of the maturity stage. Okay, because for organization to improve on the data management, they have to make sure that they record data and the data is accurate, so that data can be turned into information, because with that information, it can help organization to make decisions. Okay, and to move forward and to transform organization to achieve better performance, they have to also leverage on knowledge and wisdom. So today we are talking about industry 4.0. Okay, so this is going to be a new thing for most organizations because this is the new era that is happening in the world. So it is something that we should not ignore. Okay, but at the same time, we should not decide on something that we are not sure of. Okay, so for organization, a part of the maturity stage is the progression from managing data to managing information, and then you can manage knowledge, and further to that, acquire wisdom. So organization can actually also do its thinking, become intelligent, and make wise decision. So if the organization can do this, then we can say that organization have achieved its wisdom level, which is one of the highest level in the maturity stage. So I don't want to touch too much on the maturity stages because I think many of you are quite knowledgeable on this as well. So to examine where we are in our maturity stage, it's best to look at what level we are. Okay, so in one of the common or the what I say the universal stages that we can use in examining which level we are. The lowest of the maturity level is where there is a lot of inconsistency in the management. Okay, so sometimes when we do something, we get one result, and then we do the same thing because we don't do it consistently, then it produces a different result. Okay, so if that is the case, then it's quite difficult to predict, what will be the output of our effort. Okay, so this is something that organization need to improve. That is to make sure that their management is consistent, the business activity processes is consistent, so that the output from each business process can produce a more repeatable result. And data needs to be collected, for all the results, and the way the organization, the business process is being executed. Because from there you can actually analyze further, and you can actually structure your organization into work units, into so that you can create units within your organization that can specialize on doing certain things, and they are good at doing what they are doing. Okay, so with that, it can also improve the overall performance of the organization. And sometimes after you have learned how to master certain set of processes, you may want to also push it further so that it becomes more standardized and it becomes your organization best practice. Okay, so when it is becoming standardized, it is easier for you to start measuring. Okay, so you can measure, if let's say you do 10 activities, how many times within the 10 activities that you do, it is out of the norm. Okay, so that you can know which ones are successful and which ones are not successful, and you may want to analyze further why one or two instances it was not successful. So you can quantitatively manage the practices. So if you compare this with the earlier maturity stage, then you need to use your data, your information, and also the analysis will create knowledge. Okay, and with the knowledge, you can also push your organization further to become a wisdom organization. Okay, because if you look at this, maturity stages, one of the highest level is change management. You may wonder what is meant by change management. Change management will give you the opportunity to not only improve your internal practices within your organization, but it can also allow you to start looking outward, look forward and scan your environment and try to see how you can actually respond to the environment in order to make organization more successful. Okay, for example, like right now, when there is a pandemic, and it has been 2 years since the pandemic and is still not going away, and a lot of businesses have been affected because of the pandemic. So what do you do? So how do you make sure that you have all the basis and the knowledge to decide what you should do next? Because if you don't make the important decision, then your organization will be, irrelevant. Okay, you will not be able to survive in the current situation, and your organization may cease to exist. So it may just be obsolete. Okay, so you may be out of business. So this is probably not something you want to do. But in reality, many organizations, especially the small and medium-sized organizations, are being affected by this. Okay, because they are not ready to make changes. If we have been prepared and we are ready with this kind of maturity stage, we will be able to respond accordingly. So we may be able to change and adjust our business process so that we can do something which we don't used to do. For example, like if let's say we used to sell things in our supermarket or maybe our shop, and people come to our shop. But during the pandemic, when there is restriction in terms of movements, so not many people are coming to do shopping because they have to stay at home. All right. So how do you change your business model and business processes in order for you to transform yourself so that you can make the necessary changes in order for you to continue becoming relevant? Because otherwise, if you don't do this, you are tied to your traditional and your old practices, then you will not be able to make the necessary changes. So this is very important. That is why we need to understand why we have to deal with maturity stages, so that when we talk about IT investment, we know what to invest. It's not just on technology. To a certain extent, we have to also invest in the people. We have to also invest in the processes. Okay. So because overall, when we understand about the maturity stages, we may want to know what is our level of automation at the moment. Okay. So how many of our processes are still manual? So how much more that we need to do in terms of changing from transforming our manual processes into automated processes. So if this is the case, then we know exactly how much we need to invest, okay, to improve automation. And once we have satisfied with automation, we really master the technology. It becomes something that everyone in an organization use. Okay, then we want to push it further so that we go up the learning curve and we focus on other areas or higher level investment. For example, how do we invest to make sure that our organization becomes intelligent? Okay, so that it is not just the work that our people may do manually that we change into automation, but when we make decision, there are to some extent, technology can help us to make the decision automatically. Okay, so that we don't have to focus on the small decision, because we can adopt intelligence using certain technology, and the technology can make things better for us, so that we can focus on more complex decisions. Okay, because some of the smaller decisions have been taken care by the technology, right? So for example, like decision to close a business, or decision to open up a new business, or decision to create a new product, or decision to adopt a new business model. These are major decisions that we don't do every day. So if, let's say, our trivial decisions have been handled by systems, then we can focus more on the bigger decisions. Okay, so it makes we'll be able to make our organization more prepared and become dynamic in order to face the turbulent times. Okay, I'll skip some of this. I use some example for university, because I think even university is now operating in a very difficult time, especially because of the pandemic. So a lot of processes or a lot of things that we normally do, we cannot continue to do, and we have to do it differently. So I think this also happened in Telkom University. For example, like we cannot conduct physical classes during the pandemic. Okay, and you have to resort to online. Okay, so this is a change of business process. Okay, so we may need to also consider 5 years to come and 10 years to come, do we have to consider, the business model of a typical university? So do we go back after 5 years? If let's say the pandemic is over, do we go back to the manual processes? Okay, or do we have to change the model so that we are forward-looking, and then we can run a university using a more simplified business model? So if the student cannot come to campus, can the courses be delivered to student in a different way? Okay, so these are questions that we need to ask. Because running a university is not cheap. There are a lot of costs that is associated with running a university. So one of the thing, one of the maturity issue that we need to look when we talk about running university is how do we manage the cost of running the university? Because running university is not cheap. It's very expensive. Okay, so with the pandemic, do we see an opportunity for changing the business model of the university? So can we start moving from physical university now to online university? So this is an important transformation if it happens. Okay, so for investment, these are also areas where we have to start thinking. Okay, so the role of the university nowadays in terms of the graduate skill set. Okay, so if let's say the student is not in the university, they only have limited time in university because most of the courses are delivered online. Okay, so the experience would be probably different. Okay, so what do you need to change and invest in your business processes and your business model? Okay, for example, like if student cannot come to the university, how do you have your lab sessions with the students? Because if let's say the lab facilities are grounded on a physical setup, okay, then it's going to be very difficult to deliver to them because they have to come to the lab to do the exercises and the assignments, for example. But can you, for example, change by moving the lab to the cloud? Okay, so what does it take to move the teaching labs to the cloud? Okay, so if this is something that needs to be done because you want your organization to transform and be ready for whatever dynamics that is happening around us, then this is also something that we have to factor in when we talk about IT investment. So how do you move from having physical labs to the cloud-based labs? What kind of investment that you need to decide? Okay, what kind of technology do you need to adopt? Okay, is it enough to just subscribe to certain service? Do you have the people, or do you now depend on the service provider, technical expertise as well as the support? So these are areas where you have to decide when you think about the investment. Right. So I've got quite a number of steps, but maybe I can just skip some of them. So it's important to see where things are going, because traditionally for organization, they only focus more on people and processes. But today, if you are not digital, then it's difficult for you to survive. So technology becomes a very important component of an organization. So there must be a balance of how you invest in technology, how you invest in people, and also how you invest in processes. Okay, because even processes, after you have invested in technology, you don't want to maintain the old processes. Okay, because the old processes may cost a lot of money and overhead for the organization. So you may want to cut costs. Okay, because today, if you're still running an organization with huge overheads, it's difficult to survive. So we want an organization which is leaner, which does not depend too much on the resources, which gives us a lot of agility so that we can easily transform if we are required to do so. Okay, and that is why it is important to have the technology, the right technology in place. Okay, and in monitoring the IT investment, we need to check on the investment because as I've said earlier, it is not enough to make mistake once and then we repeat the mistake again, okay, because it is going to be a huge cost for the organization. So in order to minimize this kind of problem, one area that we need to also build in terms of our maturity is IT governance. Okay, IT governance, is where you focus on setting up the structure and making sure that there is responsible people who are responsible to monitor the activities and to make sure that whatever decision achieve the objective. Okay. So there is a need to check on the technology in terms of how the investment has been made, and once the technology is already implemented, we must also make sure that there is responsible use of the technology, and we must also make sure that the promise in terms of what the technology promised to deliver must also be delivered. So there must be delivery of value from that investment. So because we don't want, we want to avoid unintended effects of related that is not intended for the technology. In organization operation, when we talk about investment, normally we look at those from two parts. Number one is from development, and the other one is from production. So development is where we deal with new technology. Either we buy the technology and implement it, or sometimes we develop the technology in-house. Okay, so there is a period in which we have to develop the technology. And then after the technology has been implemented, then we roll out the technology, and then we start to put the technology into production. Okay, so we have to make sure that we do well in both the development as well as the production of the technology. Okay, all right, because as we have repeatedly said that IT involves a big investment, it's a big decision, there's high risk related to it. If you don't manage it properly, it is quite easy to let the technology become a failure. And with a huge investment on technology also, what we also want to avoid is misconduct and malpractices, because part of technology failure is because of this. Okay, so sometimes there is corruption that happens, and sometimes people who are making the technology decision have ulterior motives. Okay, so we want to make sure that the leadership is clean. They make the decision for the interest of the organization and not the interest for themselves, or maybe for their relatives, or maybe people who they know. Okay, and sometimes IT investment is used as a vehicle to siphon funds. Okay, so this is also something that we don't want to happen. That is why in organization, it is important to have proper governance in terms of how IT is being spent. Sometimes some of the measures that we can do is that we can limit power. Okay, because in large organization, for example, like a university, I would consider university as a large organization. So there are many divisions within that organization. There are many departments. There are many units. Okay, so and sometimes it is quite difficult to control all. Okay, and sometimes you don't want to control too much because you want people to be innovative and creative in terms of how they solve their own problem. So you may want to empower them, but at the same time you don't want your units and your departments to be out of control, such as that it becomes an opportunity for them to easily siphon money, or maybe focus on their ulterior motives, okay, which is not in the interest of the bigger organization. So good practices in IT investment, especially in project, for example, is to make sure that when you select the provider, you do open tenders, okay, and then there must be an integrity pact, okay, where people declare their conflict of interest, okay, so that whatever decision they make, it is for the interest of the organization and not for themselves. All right. And when we talk about huge investment, normally there must be a long-term plan that is aligned to the investment. Okay, so we shouldn't make huge investment not without a strategic plan. So there must be some strategic plan that accompany the investment, or the investment should be a result of that long-term plan. Okay, so IT investment cannot be out of the blue. If you are talking about government sector, government spend money using taxpayer money. Okay, they spend the funds from the taxpayer money. So they have to make sure that taxpayer money is not being used for other purpose. It must be for the benefit of the government, and the government must deliver the services to the people, to the citizens. And sometimes the investment is done during difficult time, during difficult economy, and also during a bullish economy. So sometimes the economy is good, sometimes the economy is not so good. Okay, so what would be a proper approach to decide on the investment during difficult time and during good times? Okay, so this is also something that we have to consider when we make investment decision, especially related to technology. Because sometimes if the plan is not detailed enough, the funding of the technology can be underfunded, so that we cannot choose the right technology, or sometimes we the planning is not accurate, or maybe we overestimate the technology, and it resulted in overfunding. Okay, so either ways, whether you are underfunding or underfunded or overfunded, this is not good for the organization. Okay, other things that we must also make sure is to make sure that the IT investment is when we invest on certain technology, this technology should be scalable, so that it's not just short-lived. So if we don't properly examine the right technology, the technology can easily become obsolete after 1 or 2 years, and this is not something that you want to do. So sometimes if we have invested in certain technology and it become obsolete, it is not right to just replace the technology like that, because it is huge investment. To make sure that we properly have proper strategy, we have to look into the issue of scalability, we have to look into the issue of compatibility, to make sure that the investment is sustainable. Okay, so we want to make sure that the technology is long-lived as long as possible. When we are thinking about Industry 4.0, for example, okay, so this is something that we really have to decide what are the proper infrastructure. Okay, so most countries are now talking about 5G. Okay, so 5G is not an unproven technology, it is a proven technology, but the approach in which governments or countries adopt 5G, because this is a new technology, can be very different. So we don't want to just be trapped into the technology race of 5G. We want to learn from how others, how some countries are successful, and how some countries have committed certain mistakes and failures, and we want to learn from those failures. Okay, so that we do not repeat the failure of other countries. Okay, so that is why we don't want to just simply experiment on the technology. We want to really have a proper plan for it. Okay, I mentioned some of this. Let me just skip through. I mentioned earlier about the need to invest in process. Okay, because in order for our organization to become or achieve higher maturity level, it is very important for our organization to actually become intelligent and dynamic. Okay, so we have to look into the processes. Okay, because in organizations, sometimes we want to get rid of the red tapes, we want to get rid of the bureaucracy. Okay, so because bureaucracies are the one that impede the performance of the organization. So how do we make sure that our technology can actually help minimize the bureaucracy. To some extent, we still need bureaucracy, but we don't want too much bureaucracy because it's going to become a problem for our organization. So we have to look at the processes so that our processes will become simplified. Okay, decision can be made faster. Okay, so that when we can make faster decision, we can actually make the organization become more agile and ready to be transformed. Okay. Common issue when we talk about organization process, okay, is something like this. When we invest in certain technology, one of the things that make the technology ineffective is because there is a conflict in terms of understanding who owns what. Okay, so sometimes we need to also be clear of who is the process owner, who is the system owner, and also who is the data ownership. Okay, because sometimes when something happens, different units within the organization will start to point fingers, and they want to say that this is not our part. This is a problem of other units. So this is why certain technology also fail. Okay, so it is not just an investment of the technology. If we don't resolve some of these classical problem, the benefit that the technology promise may not be ascertained. Okay, so for example, like if we talk about human resource activity, human resource activity, people will say, oh, who is the owner of human resource? Just because the IT department develops the system or maybe procure the system, does it mean that the IT department owns the human resource processes? Okay, because sometimes there can be conflict in this. Okay, because if the process owner cannot tell what they want and what is their responsibility, and put everything on the on the shoulder of the IT, then the organization performance will not improve, and the maturity of the organization cannot go up in terms of maturity curve. Okay, so very important that this becomes resolved. For example, even if IT department develops the human resource system, it is not the IT department is not the owner of the system. The owner of the system is still human resource. The process owner is human resource. The system owner is human resource. Okay, but IT department may be the custodian of the system. It can take care of the system for human resource. Okay, and that goes also to data. Okay, just because data is in the database and database is under the under the care of the IT department, does not mean that IT department owns the data. Okay, so these issues are important to be resolved to make sure that when we invest into the technology, it improves the performance. Okay, because the process owner understand their role, the system ownership also understood, and dealing with data also, who can own the data, who can change the data, who can decide who can view what in terms of the data. This can also help to improve the overall performance in the organization. Okay. So I think I would like to also highlight this. So in terms of the maturity, we can look at something like this. Okay, I would term this as e-management principle. So when we invest into technology, we look at where is our maturity level and what technology we need to focus. So certain technology will help to improve automation. Certain technology will help to improve integration. Certain technology will help to improve the optimization of resources, so that the organization become leaner in terms of the use of resources. So for example, like if a task or a process is done using 10 steps, if it is done manually, do you want to also maintain 10 steps if you use technology? Okay, so with technology, sometimes you don't need 10 steps. You can collapse, or you can actually reduce the step into just 3, for example. So why maintain 10 steps? So using technology, actually you can simplify things. You can actually change the roles. For example, like if, let's say, we think about banking 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago, people will go to the bank and queue up in the bank to be served by the counter. But today, the processes have been changed. Okay, you don't need to go to the bank. You can do self-service. You can actually go to the machines to do your banking transactions. So when we use technology, there is a need for us to re-examine the processes. Okay, so that the technology will really bring the benefit that is intended. Okay, when we want to go for Industry 4.0, we want to become a wisdom organization. So we have to really deal with more data. That is why today one of the emerging technology that we have to deal with is the big data. Okay, so there are a lot of new big data solutions, big data systems, okay, big data technologies that we can leverage on. But we have to also know what kind of data that our organization generate, what are the different types of structured data, unstructured data. So there are a lot of analysis that needs to be done. Okay, because once we are comfortable with some of this and we have invested into the right technology, the right processes, and the right people, okay, to maintain this and to deal with this, then our organization can become more dynamic and ready for transformation. All right. So bottom line, the organization maturity can help to really improve the organization performance and also the maturity. So I think I'm going to stop there. Hopefully, these points that I've shared with you have given a bit of understanding in terms of the kind of investment approach that is needed for an organization. So it is important, I think we examine the organization maturity to make sure that we invest the right technology based on our maturity level of the organization. I think with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Abdurrahman Ahlan. I think this is very interesting material from Professor Abdurrahman. IT investment is about the decision, I think. And I have noted some point. The first is IT usually is huge investment. That's why we have to consider that our IT investment can transform our organization or company to the next level of maturity. Professor Abdurrahman proposed the maturity level from automation to dynamic, and we have to consider not just the technology but also take concern investment on people and process. Okay. Thank you, Profesor Abdurrahman. Oke, selanjutnya rekan-rekan semua, teman-teman dosen dan juga rekan-rekan mahasiswa. Selanjutnya kita akan ada diskusi. Untuk sesi pertama mungkin saya persilakan, ada 2 pertanyaan. Silakan resen ya, bisa langsung di resen di status biar saya bisa lihat. Bisa juga mungkin Anda menuliskan di chat kalau misalnya mungkin Anda punya problem di koneksi. Oke, ada mungkin yang mau bertanya dulu ke Pak Novan atau Profesor Abdurrahman. Question in bahasa Indonesia, it's okay, Profesor Abdurrahman?
Boleh. Tapi
ya, boleh ya, tenang ya, mahasiswa bahasa Indonesia juga nggak apa-apa. Ayo silakan bertanya, mumpung ada ahlinya di sini. Halo, Pak Muharman mungkin ada yang mau tanyakan? Jadi Pak Muharman.
Okay, I guess I will start this session, question answer. I would like to ask Professor Ahlan, I guess we have read the CAR Harvard Review, business review. Somehow, in summarize, you thought IT doesn't matter. So it's not necessary for you to invest in technology because in the end it will be similar like train, electricity. When the cost go down numerically, and then at that timing, you will get the huge benefits compare when you invest, yeah, when the technology introduced in the first phase. And then this paper somehow got huge response, yeah, because it somehow teach for us to become the follower. So how about the timing? Because timing somehow is really abstract, yeah. So how we determine the time to invest to certain technology, and then we can optimize for the technology. So this is my question for untuk Pak Ari. Mungkin saya mau bertanya terkait ini, nggak apa-apa ya, 2 pertanyaan ya. Untuk memanaskan suasana ya. Oke, untuk Pak Ari, mungkin saya ingin bertanya terkait dengan kultur ya, karena seringkali ketika kita ngomongin tentang transformasi pasti kita terganjal ya dengan kultur gitu, yang apa namanya, yang spesifiknya mungkin kontekstual ya. Nah, kira-kira kalau dalam penerapan transformasi digital di Pupuk Indonesia, apakah kultur juga mempengaruhi? Karena saya lihat ini seakan-akan nggak ada masalah ya di Pupuk Indonesia, mereka langsung ngebut, langsung transformasi dengan bagusnya, dengan suksesnya, atau memang di awal sudah ada perencanaan dan juga identifikasi sehingga bisa diantisipasi resistensi-resistensi yang mungkin terjadi. Mungkin itu dari saya kembalikan ke moderator.
Oke, silakan Pak Profesor Abdurrahman.
Okay, terima kasih. Thank you, Dr. Muharman, for raising that question. I think, yeah, true. There was an article written by Nicholas Carr saying that does IT matters, because in the end, do we really have to have a strategy for investment? Because in the end, like today, a lot of things are on the cloud. We just need to subscribe them. So why do we have to worry? Okay. But if you look at the industry, actually, the result of what we have today is actually part of the learning curve. So if certain organizations do not start, then there will be no learning in it. So it will not be able to produce the kind of maturity that we have today. Okay, for example, if you are talking about a small and medium-sized enterprise, a small company, and then you want to do e-commerce, for example, so you may not need to develop your own systems, because there are a lot of e-commerce platforms and e-commerce marketplace already out there. So all you need to do is just open up an account, register yourself, and then be part of that community, and then you can use whatever systems that is already provided on that platform. Okay, but before that happened, there were a lot of trial and errors being done. There are leading organization within that industry that develops the systems before it becomes mature. Okay, so for those industry, if they do not invest, okay, in terms of the systems, the knowledge, okay, the technology, the business model, then you will not have what we have today. So that argument may be true to some extent when something is not new. Okay, but when we are dealing with something new, there are a lot of things which are not certain. So this is where we really have to put our heads, okay, and think deeper into planning for the strategy, because we are dealing with a lot of things which is not certain. So for example, like we talk about the Industry 4.0. Okay. What does it mean for university, for example? Okay, what does Industry 4.0 means for university? So it may be mature for manufacturing, because if we have seen how German, for example, have the manufacturing industry in Germany, many of them already use Industry 4.0. They have use a lot of automation, robotics, and there are a lot of systems that are embedded, integrated. and the way the manufacturing organization are being designed is very lean, okay, very clean, and highly automated, only using a very small number of people. But that is because they have already reached that level of maturity. There have been a series of investment that they have done. There have been a series of trainings that they have done. There have been a series of design and redesign that they have implemented. So when they have learned from those experiences and make it mature in terms of their level, then they produce standards and best practices for manufacturing in the Industry 4.0 era. But when you talk about university, for example, what does Industry 4.0 means for university? There are a lot of things which is not certain. So the leading organization within the education sector have to invest in terms of research, have to invest in terms of the technology. They have to probably develop and test the technology, right? Then only becomes something which may be adopted by the rest. And when it becomes common, then those common practices will be like utilities. Okay, so you don't need for others to invent, okay, but they have to just use. Okay, so but some players within the industry have to develop it. Okay, so the argument from Carl may be true to some, but it's not going to be true for others. Okay, so maybe that's my response for your question.
Oke, thank you, Bos Abdurrahman. Next, Pak Novan, silakan.
Oke, saya share lagi ya.
Tentang kultur ya, Pak Novan.
Kultur, ya. Jadi kultur itu adalah fondasi malahan. Jadi saya cerita aja lah. Jadi kultur di perusahaan saya yang lama di Pupuk Kaltim, ini kita tertolong dengan kultur yang nggak bisa ya. Kulturnya itu paguyuban, semua orang kenal gitu ya. Jadi antar unit relatively sedikit ada apa namanya define barrier itu sedikit. Nah, tapi ketika IT masuk, ini kita tidak mulai ujuk-ujuk, tapi sejak lama gitu. Kita mengenalkan itu sejak lama. Contohnya ketika tahun 2007-2008 kita mengenalkan video conference sebelum zamannya Zoom dan sebagainya. Itu menjelaskan ke direksi itu susah gitu, Mas. Ketika saya jelaskan, Pak, dengan video conference kita bisa menghemat setahun kira-kira 4-5 miliar. Oh, itu bagus, Pak. Tapi kita tetap harus ada cost reduction program. Artinya dengan 5 miliar kita biayanya 500 juta, kan sebetulnya masih ada margin pas setengah gitu ya. Tapi itu kalau bisa ditekan aja, kalau bisa video conference-nya nggak usah pakai video, suara saja gitu. Zaman itu ya, itu leadernya mengatakan seperti itu. Bingung nggak orang IT gitu ya? Video conference nggak usah pakai video, suara saja gitu. Kan lebih murah gitu. Batin saya pakai telepon aja Pak kalau gitu kan. Tapi ya nggak dijawab semacam itu kan. Nah itu bertahap gitu ya. Tapi ketika sudah jadi culture-nya, karena culture-nya itu paguyuban, kita masuk kemana saja gampang gitu. Nah itu adopsi teknologi informasinya juga cepat. Ketika dapat leader yang bagus, makanya saya share yang tadi ya, semoga bisa share. Itu IT tanpa leadership yang bagus itu bullshit, nggak jalan. Jadi harus dapat leader yang bagus dulu, mulai IT gitu ya. Makanya ketika kami dapat CEO yang mengatakan aku nggak mau rekrut tahun ini sampai 5 tahun ke depan IT suruh masuk. Nah itu baru kelihatan di situ. Setelah ganti CEO lagi tinggal ngelanjutin. Dan sekarang ini lucu ya Pak ya. Lucunya begini. Saya mimpin departemen IT di Pupuk Kaltim waktu itu. Sampai saat ini tuh belum ada VP-nya pengganti saya. Tapi semua operasional IT jalan. Semua pengembangan IT jalan. Jadi sudah autopilot. Jadi teman-teman itu sudah bisa menjalankan fungsinya berkomunikasi dengan customer dengan baik tanpa dipimpin. Jadi pimpinan itu cuma wisdom, ya enggak, gitu aja. Kalau jadi VP IT di sana. Kebalikannya, ketika saya masuk ke Pupuk Indonesia, itu ada budaya dari Sabang sampai Merauke. Budayanya orang Pupuk Iskandar Muda, Pupuk Kujang, Pupuk Petrokimia, itu Pustri itu beda-beda. Ada yang sangat informal, ada yang birokratis banget, ketemu harus janjian begitu ya. Nah, ini menghambat adopsi itu sangat susah gitu ya. Apalagi ketika di Pupuk Indonesia harus berhadapan dengan eksternal stakeholder yang kita harus didik juga gitu. Nah, itu jadi tantangannya apakah nanti di Pupuk Indonesia akan lebih cepat? Saya kira enggak. Mungkin akan banyak lebih lambat. Karena banyak barrier-barrier yang tidak seperti Pupuk Kaltim yang seperti tadi. Dan alhamdulillah ternyata dengan apa ya? Mungkin berkahnya Pupuk Kaltim. Jadi di ujung dunia gitu, jauh dari peradaban, tapi di sana ini masjidnya jalan, gerejanya jalan, komunitas olahraga jalan. Jadi yang semacam itu membuat akulturasi kesepakatan itu sudah terjadi sebelum rapat, bayangin. Jadi kegiatan informal itu sambil kita ngomong, ini ya, besok ini ketemu ini. Jadi ketemu rapat itu cuma tanda tangan, resume sudah selesai gitu. Tapi beda dengan Jakarta. Jakarta itu undangan dulu, rapat belum tentu dijalankan itu hasil rapatnya kan gitu. Nah ini budaya. Jadi yang gambarnya semacam itu, Mas. Jadi tantangannya berbeda. Gitu. Budaya sangat mengaruh. Leader apalagi. Tapi kalau leadership minimal leadershipnya jalan dulu, budaya bentuk pelan-pelan gitu. Nggak bisa langsung. Tapi pelan-pelan kita harus bentuk. Mungkin itu jawaban saya.
Oke, jadi budaya penting ya. Yang belum tahu PKT itu di Bontang. Bontang itu berapa jam itu, Pak Novan ya? 5 jam ya dari Balikpapan ya dulu.
Sekarang 7 jam, tapi ada pesawat ke Samarinda, kalau Samarinda 2 jam. Nah, dekatnya Pak Abdurrahman itu. Ke sana sedikit Sabah kan, Sabah Sarawak.
Iya, betul. Nah, di sana kepitingnya mantap. Nah, nanti Anda yang belum pernah ke sana harus ke sana. Baik, next mungkin ada pertanyaan di chat belum ada. Sambil menunggu yang ada saya tak coba nanya. Jadi Pak Novan, faktor yang paling susah menjadi penghambat bagi transformasi digital misalnya di sekarang ya di Pupuk Kaltim sama Pupuk Indonesia itu apa selain aspek leadership dan kultur tadi ya?
Ya, kalau di Pupuk Kaltim relatif internal ya, kebanyakan internal itu nggak banyak, barrier nggak banyak. Kalau Pupuk Indonesia leadership-nya sudah, culture-nya belum terbentuk, gitu ya. Satu lagi external regulation dari pemerintah. Nah, ini berubah kadang setiap saat. Nah, itu repot gitu ya. Jadi contoh nih, petani kalau ngambil subsidi dulu sebelumnya cukup pakai nota dari kios. Gitu. Simpel gitu ya. Berubah lagi, boleh diambil oleh ketua kelompok tani yang tantangan. Berubah lagi, semuanya harus pakai kartu tani gitu. Nah, ketika kartu tani, ternyata kartu taninya nggak ada saldonya. Atau apa namanya? Jadi saya sedikit gambarin ya. Jadi subsidi itu ada namanya rencana definitif kebutuhan kelompok. Itu diajukan oleh petani. Jumlahnya 24 juta ton pupuk subsidi. Pemerintah cuma punya duit 9 juta ton. Nah, 9 juta ton ini baginya bagaimana? Kementerian Pertanian menyerahkan ke pemerintah daerah. Pemerintah daerah hanya membagi per kecamatan, bukan per orang. Sampai di kiosnya ngomong, siapa yang datang duluan tak kasih. Atau yang kiosnya agak wise, dibagi rata lah. Gitu. Nah, kemudian ada aturan lagi, penerima subsidi harus di bawah 2 hektar tanahnya. Nah, kalau di atas 2 hektar gimana? Pinjam tetangganya KTP-nya. Yang penting dilaporkan kan 2 hektar gitu.
Gitu ya.
Kayak gitulah. Jadi begitu masuk ke pupuk Indonesia, wih ini ngurus negara ini pelik ternyata ya. Nah, tapi kita harus maju terus, harus jalan terus. Karena itu kita ngusulin namanya retail management system itu kita coba maju, dan juga regulasi-regulasi tentunya kita nggak bisa yang seperti itu bagiannya Kementerian Pertanian sebetulnya. Kita hanya sebagai penyedia pupuknya kan gitu. Sampai saat ini pun pupuk Indonesia belum bisa menerima by name by address berapa banyak. By name by address saja alokasi yang 24 juta ton tadi, bukan yang 9 gitu. Baginya terserah kios gitu. Mau duluan, mau dibagi terserah kios. Kan repot itu. Nah, kayak gitulah. Jadi tadi kalau di pupuk Indonesia satu lagi regulasi, dan juga banyak kepentingan politik ya. Kita nggak bisa apa namanya. Kalau pupuk Indonesia siap mau subsidi langsung, mau subsidi produk, kita semuanya sudah siapkan itu. Tapi ada yang nggak mau subsidi langsung, ada yang maunya subsidi langsung, ya seperti itu. Jadi kalau tambah nih komponennya, kalau di pupuk Indonesia di samping leadership, culture belum kebentuk, satu lagi external regulation. Itu Pak.
Terima kasih Mas Novan. Oke, ini kok masih sepi? Belum ada yang nanya lagi.
Tinggal mau diskusinya makro apa mikro ini?
Silakan.
Kita mikro IT oke, makro oke, gitu ya.
Ayo silakan Pak nih. Bisa. Dia.
Iya Pak, sebelumnya perkenalkan terlebih dahulu, saya Widya Febriani. Saya izin bertanya Pak terkait dengan pengelolaan yang ada di PT Pupuk Indonesia. Nah itu seperti apa ya Pak untuk implementasinya, dan mungkin ketika kita akan melakukan sebuah investasi, faktor-faktor apa saja yang perlu diperhatikan, dan mungkin bagaimana caranya kita agar mengurangi ataupun mengantisipasi adanya mungkin terjadinya sesuatu kegagalan seperti itu, Pak.
Terakhir apa tadi? Mengurangi apa?
Jadi kegagalan itu dapat dihindarkan, Pak, sebelumnya.
Kurang jelas Pak gitu ya. Kegagalan ya? Kegagalan investasi atau apa?
Iya betul.
Oh. Langsung dijawab, Mas Bas?
Silakan.
Oke, mungkin saya punya waktu 5 menit lagi ya, karena ditunggu. Jadi begini, pemilihan investasi itu ada dua besar biasanya, make or buy, gitu ya. Kalau praktisnya make or buy, gitu. Nah, saya termasuk pahamnya yang make. Sekali lagi, kalau kita bangun supply chain, bangun rantai, bangun sarang laba-laba, itu tidak bisa dibangun oleh dua laba-laba. Jadi harus satu konsep gitu. Semakin banyak vendor, semakin banyak penyedia jasa, itu kita akan susah semakin mengintegrasikan. Karena itu saya mengambil anak-anak terbaik dari seluruh Indonesia, saya didik, saya jadikan tim. Cara kerja kita itu kalau ada tim ad hoc, saya open rekrutmen tim, kemudian kita ajarin dia. Kemudian setelah itu kita jadikan satu rumah gitu ya, satu proyek satu rumah. Mereka mau bangun silahkan, jam berapa, mau setelah subuh tidur lagi, setelah itu bangun nanti tidurnya jam 3 pagi, itu terserah dia, tapi kita target gitu. Nah, tapi dengan seperti itu lebih murah dan lebih terkontrol hasilnya. Nah, itu salah satu cara antisipasi. Jadi kalau saya proyek-proyek besar pun, saya pernah kemarin terakhir itu retail management system sama BUD. Kamu beli aja Pak biar cepat. Enggak Pak, saya mau bangun sendiri. Nah, kalau ini targetnya sudah sampai menteri gitu ya. Enggak apa-apa Pak. Bet saya taruhannya kan gitu. Karena saya sudah paham, proven selama bertahun-tahun seperti itu jalan. Nah, itu. Jadi kecuali sesuatu yang kita nggak bisa, seperti perangkat perangkat keras dan sebagainya itu di luar kemampuan kita gitu ya. Tapi kalau perangkat lunak dan sebagainya, anak Indonesia, anak Malaysia itu pinter-pinter semua. Tim saya dari Indonesia, Malaysia ada. Jadi kalau mereka diajak bergabung itu semangatnya berkobar, merah putihnya itu berkobar. Ayo asli Indonesia gitu. Nggak usah pakai yang lain-lain lah. Ini setelah itu kita inovasikan sampai Amerika, sampai mana, ikut Gartner Supply Chain Innovation Award dan sebagainya kayak gitu. Nah itu strategi. Mungkin itu Mas Bas, saya minta izin pamit ya.
Terima kasih Mas Novan untuk
Salam Prof.
Terima kasih. Oke, ada pertanyaan khususnya buat Profesor Abdurrahman. Profesor Abdurrahman, how to make sure that we choose the right decision about investment regarding the maturity level of our organization? From your presentation, there are some level from automation, integration, lean, intelligence, and dynamic. So as example, my company may be in the level of automation. Can we jump to the intelligent maturity level? Or maybe I were to prioritize integration, to put the investment in the integration level first. This is the last question, yeah.
Yeah, even though I put them in like a curve, but it does not mean that it is something linear. So, for example, like if sometimes you have to combine, in the investment to address automation issues. Sometimes you have to also address the integration issue, because in organization, when you talk about IT, you don't just focus on automation at one time and then integration at other times, because sometimes there are a number of systems that needs to be integrated. So you have to really understand how much you need to address the gap in automation, how much you need to address the gap in integration. Okay, and sometimes because you suddenly operating in industry where intelligence is becoming the norm. So you cannot just delay. You probably have to also address intelligence and at the higher levels. So even though it is put on a curve, but does not mean that you have to address one after another. So sometimes you have to address up and down. Just like human, sometimes human you have to learn to walk and run at the same time. Yeah. So even if you are still studying, sometimes you have to also experience working.
That's right.
Yeah. So but the experience will not be always the same for everyone, for every organization. So this is where the understanding of your internal operation is very important. So the framework or the maturity levels basically just give you a guideline on how you should start examining your operations, but does not mean that you have to adopt it in a rigid way. Yeah, because some organizations sometimes they jump from existence into intelligence and wisdoms. Okay, and for example, if you talk about Google, for example, Google is a company that focus on the high level maturity. So when they started the web browser, for example, the Google Chrome, they focus on the semantic technology. So it is not at the bottom of the maturity curve, because they know that they have to deal with data and things like that. That is why they focus on a high level maturity. So it depends on what is the core business that we are operating. So some digital based companies and organizations, they normally just focus on the higher level. But if let's say you are operating in an industry where there's a lot of manual things, then maybe you have to focus on the automation and integration. Yeah. So certain industry have higher level maturity. Some industry are still struggling. Okay, I would say for example, e-commerce, this is already on a high level, maturity level. So that is why today, even if you just start a company, in a short while, you can go into e-commerce very quickly because the technology is already there. The solutions are there. You don't need to invent the wheel. You just follow the best practice within that industry. Okay, so maybe this is my response to your question. Hopefully, I answered your question.
Thank you, Professor Abdul Rahman. Okay, I think this is the last question. And sebelum kita tutup, mungkin kita ambil picture ya. Mungkin mohon semua bisa open cam semuanya, rekan-rekan, dosen dan mahasiswa. Mungkin kita bisa halo. Ya mungkin masih ini nih. Silakan yang mau silakan bisa open cam ya, rekan-rekan semuanya. Oke, saya akan take picture sebagai kenangan. Oke, saya coba ambil ya. 1, 2, 3. Oke, halaman berikutnya. Baik, terima kasih sekali. Dengan selesainya tadi diskusi ini berarti sudah selesai event kita. Thank you so much, Professor Abdul Rahman for your sharing, and hopefully maybe we can invite you another time for sharing to our civitas and especially for the TELU students. Terima kasih semuanya, Bapak Ibu semuanya, rekan-rekan mahasiswa yang sudah join. Semoga kita dapat manfaat dari event ini, terutama bagi rekan-rekan mahasiswa di mata kuliah transformasi digital, tata kelola TI, dan beberapa mata kuliah di semester ini ya. Terima kasih Pak Muharman yang sudah memfasilitasi kegiatan ini sehingga bisa terselenggara. Semoga kita bisa mendapatkan sharing dari banyak expert dan juga akademisi dari banyak tempat dan banyak negara untuk meningkatkan kualitas magister sistem informasi kita. Sebagai penutup, saya ucapkan terima kasih bagi semuanya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih, Profesor Abdul Rahman.
Terima kasih, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Welcome, everyone.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Ahlan.